Happy day everyone. So today we'll be starting off with Unit 2. So Unit 2 focuses on HR policies and HR planning. We'll first talk about what is a HR policy, why do companies need HR policy and what are the areas in which it usually covers, and then we'll also be talking about the details regarding HR planning, what are the various processes involved in that. So all of that will be discussed in this unit. So let's get started with the meaning of HR policies. So if you look back, right when we started in school, we always want everyone to treat us equally, right? That's the whole reason why schools have uniform, because we don't want the teachers or the management to, be partial to few children depending upon their parents' status or whatever it is. And that was the stage in school. But when you talk about college, when you enter into college, you want to be given equal opportunity, you want to go to various competition, you want to develop your skills. So there is something common in wherever we go in life, whether it is school, colleges or workplace, we always want to be treated equally. The needs might be different, but the basic idea that we always want to be treated equally does not change. So HR policies are mainly designed to ensure the same. So if you look at the definition, it is basically the total commitment of the organization to act in a specified way while dealing with its employees. This is because just imagine you're going to work with an organization with 2 or 3 friends, and all of you need to be treated equally, right? If you are not given a promotion, but if your colleague is given a promotion, even though you've worked the same level, obviously it's going to make you angry. So HR policies are mainly designed to make sure that all employees are treated equally, be it in terms of promotion or salary or whatever the rules the company has laid out. For example, if an employee is not following the dress code, every employee's actions should be dealt in the same way. The manager cannot be partial to one employee, allow him to wear a dress code which he prefers and be very strict to another employee. Obviously, it will make us angry, right? So HR policies make sure that the conflicts like that do not arise. If you look at it, it's basically an assurance that the decisions made by the management would be consistent. So if you come late to the company, for example, if the reporting time is 9 o'clock and if you come 9:15, half day of leave should be taken. If that is the rule, no matter when you come on the first day, second day, third day or the whole week, half day of leave will be taken for every day. So the actions should always be consistent. That is the way in which usually every rule works, right? You can't lay down a rule today and lift it off tomorrow. There would be no viability in that. And it should also be fair. That's what we've been talking about from the beginning. No matter if you come late or your manager comes late or even the CEO comes late, everybody should be taken equally into consideration while laying down any kind of rule, be it termination or promotion. They should make sure that there is fair conduct inside the organization, and finally it should be in line with the objectives of the organization. In HR, we usually talk about how the company functions in a way where everything is employee oriented. We want to take care of the employees, that's right. But at the end of the day, we cannot forget that everybody is here to do their work, right? You cannot forget that they are here, they are being paid a salary, they are given all the amenities, because at the end of the day, we want to get the work done. So no matter what HR policies we lay down, it should be in favor of employees, employers, other workers and other third-party dealers, but at the same time, it should be in line with the objectives of the organization. And usually HR policies cover personnel selection, because right from recruitment, we always want to make sure there are hard and fast rules, right? Only then the whole process will be trusted enough by the employees. And compensation, definitely a big matter where almost a lot of conflicts occur, because even though the work might be similar, the workload might be similar, there are complaints that the employees might not receive the same amount of compensation again. It could be a problem, so HR policies will definitely cover that. And here by compensation, we talk about both non-monetary and monetary, be it work-life balance, or probably they are given an incentive, other benefits where they can go for a trip or a cruise. We've heard about these LTA, right, leave travel allowance, where companies actually make an effort to make sure that the employees also have a good family too. And union relations and public relations as well. Unions are basically representatives of the employees. Again, they should be given equal voice to have a say in matters of decision making, to have a say in matters of other employee related concerns. And also public relations, HR policies also covers third party relations. We will be seeing that in detail on what are the various areas in which HR policy covers. All right. Let us move on to the examples. These are some of the basic examples of HR policies. Bereavement leave, this might be a rare phenomena, not a lot of companies offer bereavement leave. This, for example, what happens here is for example, you are working in a company and your first circle of relatives, your first circle would be your mother, father, your immediate siblings, or if it's married, then its spouse, their mother-in-law, the spouse's mother, father and their siblings. So that will be considered as the first family. In case if someone passes away in that first family line, bereavement leave usually offers them 7 days leave with pay. So this basically gives an opportunity for the employees to take time, grieve and take care of concerns with family, especially in a place where India there are a lot of rituals. So bereavement leave entirely focuses on employees' well-being. We are actually giving them an opportunity to get their personal life in line so that they can come back and work efficiently when they return after 7 days. And dress code, this is common. Almost all the organizations have dress code today. Because this is a great way, because employees are also seen as the face of the organization. If you are especially a sales or a marketing executive, you might have to go and talk to customers, you might have to go to talk to dealers. At that time, you will basically act like a face of the organization. So it's very important to maintain a good dress code. And again, equal employment opportunity is one of the recent trends these days, where all the employees, no discrimination is allowed, whether in case of race, religion, gender, minority employees. We are often looking at employers these days who are giving equal opportunity to women employees, because they want to show that they are giving good work-life balance, they are taking care of the women of the society by giving them equal opportunity as the men. So that is about equal employment opportunity policy. Moonlighting is when they have a second job. You've often heard this. People, even though they work in organizations, they have some passion, right? Either it is for painting or singing, or even they allow RJs these days, where they work for an organization. And especially if you go and see in All India Radio, almost all the RJs working there work part-time in FM Rainbow. So basically they are giving, these organizations, they give an opportunity for the employees also to do their passion, at the same time work for the company. But the rules might be strict in terms of moonlighting, because you cannot let the second job affect your performance in the main first job inside the organization. So there are very strict rules when it comes to moonlighting, but this is a considerable level of improvement, because here the employers are actually taking care of the employees by making sure they have their own passion and they have their own second source of income as well. And open door policy again is a way where employees are given a huge space to actually go ahead and talk about the issues that they are facing there. Even if they want to quit, the employers take it in a good heart, give them good feedback, give them good reference as well. Substance abuse is again a very common no drug policy, where the employees have to strictly, almost all organizations have policies against substance abuse, because the actions of one employee actually has a huge effect on the actions of the other employees as well. That is the reason there are strict policies against substance abuse and also workplace threats and violence. Conflict is inevitable in a workplace, because there are so many people with so much knowledge and experience coming together, making decisions together. So there's obviously going to be conflicts. So even if there is a conflict, there should be a boundary, right, beyond which they are not allowed to show their anger or frustration. Workplace threats and violence is a must, because this is a great way for the organization to ensure the safety of the overall employees working inside the organization. So these are some of the various examples. There are so many different HR policies. If you look at a company's HR policies, they'll give you a booklet on what are the various HR policies and what happens if they do not follow that HR policies. Even that acts as part of that. Now let's look at the characteristics of HR policy. If we look at the first characteristics of a HR policy, it should be clear, precise and easily understandable. So whether it is simple HR policies, be it dress code or coming on time, there should be no implicit meanings inside it. As soon as we read the HR policy, we should be able to understand what it is trying to say. Because there should be no misinterpretation or miscommunication, especially when it comes to HR policies. So in order to have a sound HR policy, it is always advisable to have a very simple language which everybody can understand, so that there is no insight or some other meaning which can be misinterpreted. And the next one is written policies. It is always best to have the policies to be written, because otherwise it's just going to be he said, she said, which doesn't make any sense, right? It's easy to be miscommunicated when we just pass on the word. That's how gossips start, right? So always it's good for the HR policies to be written in a formal document to make sure that there is no confusion in the later on. It's very easy for the manager also. If they're supposed to come in at 9 and if they come at 9:15 and half day of leave should be taken, there is no power with the manager. It's written in the HR policy document, so that's exactly what will happen. So we are reducing the authority or decision making inside implementation just because we are explicitly stating everything in the written document itself, so that there is no power for anybody to have any kind of change or impact in implementation of the HR policy. And the next one is the most important one, which should protect interests of all the parties. So in HR we've been talking time and again where every HR policy or strategy, whenever we are trying to come up with a welfare measure, it should always be focusing on the welfare of employees to make sure they are being taken care of inside the workplace. But at the end of the day, we saw in the meaning of HR policy that it should also keep in mind with the overall company's outcome, overall company's objective. So whenever we draw a HR policy, we should also make sure that it is in the interest of the employers, employees, to the government and community. So if you look at, there are very explicit government law, there are various labor laws in which we are explicitly stating about the working hours, the minimum compensation, allowances which has to be paid. These are all basic measures where the government is ensuring everybody is being taken care of. And if you look at the community measures, this is how we build a community, right? It starts with one person. How they are being taken care of inside the organization is definitely going to impact in their personal life as well. And that is how a community is built. So if you look at it at a very small level, it's just about an organization with 100 employees. But if you look at as a community, there are 10 companies with so many employees. That's how an overall community's lifestyle is built. So HR policies, when they are being drafted, it should also make sure that what kind of community are we building with these rules and regulations. So that is about the interests, making sure that all the interests, all the parties' interests are being taken care of, and it should be instrumental in achieving organizational goals. See, this is coming up time and again. We saw this in the meaning of HR policies and also in the characteristics of a sound HR policy, because it's very easy to get deviated from organizations' objectives, right? They are being here, they are being brought in to do work, but at the end of the day, we are talking about salary, we are talking about the fairness in the recruitment process. It's very easy to get deviated from the overall organizational objective and overall organization's goal. So whenever we draw a strategy or whenever we make a decision, it should be in line with the organization's objectives and the organization's goal as well. We cannot deviate from the main idea. And next, it should be flexible to adjust according to changing situations. The classic example of this one is what happened during the corona situation, right? IT employees are working, everything was going on fine, and then quarantine comes in, everybody is locked up. So the HR policies were flexible enough to give them an option to work from home in a pandemic, where definitely there could have been some changes made in the policies, but the point is the basic HR policy was flexible enough to adapt to such a huge pandemic. Not only IT, if you look at any sector, all the sectors had to reinvent themselves in this pandemic. So the basis of that entirely depends upon HR policy, whether there was a particular hole where they can actually implement and be flexible according to the changing conditions, because if they are not accepting what is happening in the world, not only corona, whether it is technology wise or probably a new innovation is there in the market, there should always be a space where the organization is able to develop itself, change itself so that it's flexible and according to the trend in the market. And this is one of the most important things, because the minute we say HR policy, we think as if it's a rule which has to be followed. But if you look at the basics in which when we are trying to build a very sound or a proper HR policy, it should facilitate two-way communication. So the feedback of the policy should be efficiently communicated to the top managers. So this is very important, because the rules, it's very easy to make, right? The management can very easily come and say, okay, so you're supposed to work these many hours, this is the amount of break, but the reality can be sometimes different from what we envisioned it to be. That is the reason there should always be space for two-way communication, where we actually give the employees where we give the employees an opportunity to say if there is something to be changed. This again goes back to the points where we talk about protecting interests of all the parties. So this is another great way to make sure that that happens too, where we actually ask the employees whether this policy is good or whether it is causing some kind of problem which actually creates problem instead of solving problem. So feedback of the policy should always be communicated to the top management, and that can also be changed and implemented by making future adjustments according to the changing conditions. Again, when they started a HR policy in the beginning of the organization, in the beginning when the organization started, after 15 years, 20 years, they just can't have the same policy. It has to be revised, it has to be reframed according to the trends in the market, because the employees are changed. It also depends upon the type of workforce that we have. So feedback of the policy is very important to make sure that the overall efficiency is achieved. And it should also facilitate long-range purpose of personal relations. So we talked about organization's objectives. There are objectives for HRM as well, right? So we talk about whether equal treatment, that's right, but we also want to make sure that we are using every employee's efforts to the maximum possible level. So all of that, when we look at a long range idea, it's very important for the HR policy to be framed properly so that they are able to achieve the long range goals of HRM as well. And this is the final and the most important one. From the beginning, we've been seeing about HR policy is an excellent way where the management can make sure that everybody is treated uniformly. So that is the basic idea behind every HR policy, equal treatment to all. That should always be kept in mind. We're talking about interest, we're talking about flexibility, right, but the basic idea is to make sure everybody is treated equally inside the organization, and that shouldn't be compromised. Now let's take a look at the various principles of HR policies. What are the various principles which should be kept in mind when we are trying to draft a HR policy? First one is principle of common interest. So when we draw HR policies, it is drawn usually, it's designed usually by the top management, right? So they'll always keep in mind to make sure that the profits are achieved, but at the same time they should also keep in mind whether the employee welfare, and we also spoke about where the employees are given equal opportunity to have a good personal life also. So that is the basic principle where every HR policy should keep in mind whether they are achieving common interest of both employers and employees. And the second one, it should promote development. There should be space within the HR policies to make sure that they are given ample opportunity to develop themselves individually, and also here we are also talking about organizational development, because employees are the basic flesh and skin of the company, right? So they are the ones who are actually going to help the organization develop. So HR policies, when they are being drafted, it should also make sure that we are giving opportunities for the employees to develop their skills, to develop their knowledge, where to enhance their experience by working in different projects, working in diversified technologies, just to make sure that we have given them an opportunity to improve themselves, to develop themselves, which will ultimately lead to the organization's development. So the HR policies should not be very rigid so that there is no opportunity for the employees to develop themselves other than just to do their work and go home. That shouldn't be the case. They should be giving them enough space for them to develop themselves and also contribute to the organization in such a way where it paves way for the organization's development as well. And the third one is right man for the right job. Whenever you see in recruitment and selection, especially HR has a huge role. HR is mainly, the organization is mainly depending upon HR for making sure that the recruitment strategy is properly formulated. Again, because we want the right person to do the job. Whether in case of promotion or when we are talking about transfer or when we are also talking about bringing in a new person inside the company. Why do we have a proper recruitment strategy? True, we always spoke about having the HR policy to be uniform. We are giving equal opportunity to whoever has applied for the company, accepted. But at the same time, the fit, it should be a right fit for the organization as well. Whether it is culturally, skill-wise, probably even regionally. That is the reason we talk about learning new regional languages, right? Because every organization's need might be different. So the HR policies will also pave the way to basically make sure that we are fitting in the right person for the right job. This is also because we talk about HR policy covering in promotions as well. So just because they've worked for a long time, you can't give them promotion. Maybe they don't have the skill to lead a particular team. So being uniform is one, but at the same time we cannot compromise on their overall, overall result as well. That is the reason this acts as one of the principles. And if we move on to the fourth principle, recognition of work and accomplishment. That is what we want, right? When we are working in an organization, if you work there for 6 or 7 years, you want your incentive. You worked so hard. You want the promotion. You feel you have all the skill. You've impressed your client. You've brought in new clients. You've increased your profit. Obviously, you want to be recognized for your work and accomplishment, be it non-monetarily or even monetarily. That's why we spoke about incentives and benefits, making sure HR policies pave the way in such a way that all employees are being equally rewarded according to their work efforts and according to the outcome that they've brought to the company with their work. So that is the reason even this acts as part of one of the principles behind every HR policy, because at the end of the day, this is a great tool for us to motivate our employees, right? So when you know that you are going to be rewarded your first promotion after you work 6 years, that's how it's always been inside the company, you'll obviously be loyal. Even if you get a good offer outside, you won't go, because you know that if you're here for 10 years, if you're here for 15 years, you will get that manager promotion. So it's not always monetary rewards which actually motivate the employees. Small things like recognizing for work. We see these sales outlets having star employee, star sales performer. This is a great way for the management to motivate the employees. Give them that sense of recognition that you are being valued inside the company. So that acts as one of the fourth principle. And recognition of trade unions. Trade unions are basically representatives of employees. So they should be given equal voice in decision making, formulation of strategy, because if they agree, the whole set of employees are going to agree. It's easy to go to them that way. That is the reason trade unions actually work, because it's instead of focusing on all employees, getting all their concerns and feedback, trade unions are a great way where we can, have employee representatives, hear about their feedback, hear what the employees want. So we can make sure there are arrangements made. It's an easy way. So recognition of trade unions is another great way where we actually take in the employees' ideas and decision making into the top management's ideas and strategy formulation as well. And next up, we have participation in management. So this slides a little bit with recognition of trade unions, because here there are often lot of complaints, right? So that the lower level employees and lower level managers are not given equal opportunity to give ideas or to give feedback. These days it's very important for the organizations in such a competitive world top managements are trying their most to make sure that they are retaining the best skill. To do that, you have to encourage their participation in management as well. Get them informed. Management objectives is one of the great way where the subordinates are actually brought in consciously to make sure that they are also being involved from the planning stage to implementing and carrying on their activities as well. This is a great way where we actually empower them to take a seat at the decision making table. So this is one of the great ways. This is the reason these can have a great way in motivating the employees. That's the reason it's coming back as one of the principles of HR policies. And finally, we have change. So just now we saw in the characteristics of sound HR policy, right? Every HR policy should not be very rigid. The classic example was the whole pandemic situation where every organization has to basically reinvent themselves to make sure that they are not staying back. They had to change their line of authority, who's reporting to who, to make sure there is proper flow of communication. At the same time, they are not compromising on the overall efficiency of the work done by the employees as well. So the HR policies should also have a small space for it to actually be revised or formulated again. Again, if the companies started 20 years ago, they just can't keep following the same HR policies, right? It had to be reinvented, it had to be revised. So there should be proper space for it to be flexible enough according to the changing conditions, whether it is in the market or the overall economy, whatever it is. It should have proper space for it to change and be revised. So these are the various principles of HR policies. Now let's look at the coverage of HR policies. What are the different areas in which HR policies are expected to cover when the minute an employee enters inside the organization? They are going to work, their health and hygiene should be taken care of, whether it is recruitment, promotion, till the minute they are being, probably they are getting fired or probably they are going to retire or resign. There should be HR policies which is addressing in every step of the way. That's what we'll be seeing now. If you look at the first point, it should have a social responsibility. Yes, we've spoken about equity where everybody is given equal opportunity. That's a basic social responsibility that they have, right? Every company, if they are in a society, they should make sure that they are giving equal opportunities to the minority, to the different classes, which will ultimately help the economy grow, to the country develop. So it starts with one person, it starts with one company. That is the reason we speak about coverage of HR policies, especially in social responsibility, to have equity, equal treatment to all, and also in terms of consideration and quality of work life. So quality of work life, if you talk about it, it's not about, if you look at the various companies, if an employee works in a company for like 10 or 15 years, they just get bored, right? It's the same job day in, day out. There's nothing to innovate. There's nothing to be creative about. So in quality of work life, the main emphasis is to make sure that the job is not bored, that they are being challenged enough to make sure that they don't feel monotonous working inside the company. So that is the social responsibility, to have equal pay, to make sure everybody is being treated equally. The compensation should be declared according to their skill and efficiency and not be biased about it, and also about the quality of work life, that the job that they are doing, the quality of work that's being given to them, all of that will be covered by the HR policies. And next we talk about employment policies, the basics of employment. Equal employment opportunities, no bias with regard to gender, religion, age, nationality, whatever it might be. Everybody should be given equal opportunity. If they are qualified for the job, if they have the right skill, if they have the right experience, they should be given the job. That should be the basics, the job description, the job specification, the various activities involved inside the job. That should be the basis of probably giving them the particular job, and selection based on job requirements. So if you look at the selection process, recruitment and selection process, There is this whole reference, there is this whole background check. That's all fine, but at the same time, you can, just because you know the candidate's father, or just because you're friends with the candidate, you can't give them the job. That will not be fair, right? So employment policies, in coverage of employment policies, the basic thing is to make sure that the employees are selected based on only the job requirements, whether they are actually qualified to do that particular job. And this, we are not just talking about freshers or people who are joining in the first time. No, we are also talking about promotions. We are also talking about transfers. If an employee wants to go to another city, if there is an opening there, if he requests for it, if there are 2 employees who are requesting for it, they should be given only on merit. Just because you like one person, you cannot give them that job. So the selection should only be based on job requirements. And employee encouragement, again, you have to motivate employees. You have to give them the opportunity to you have to empower them to actually have a say, to actually get them the feedback, to make sure that they are being motivated enough to work inside the organization. And next up we have promotion policies. The minute I say promotion, everybody's brain just wires back to the fact that promotions can be tricky in few organizations. There is this whole politics on who should be the next manager, on who will be retained in that 10 or 15 years just because the top management does not have a good opinion about them. That's just very bad, right? So every promotion policy inside every organization should be made sure that everybody is given equal treatment. So this is the one which actually impacts employees' loyalty inside the organization. In this global competitive scenario, especially the cream talent, people who are extremely talented and skilled, there are a lot of organizations waiting in queue to get them. How are you going to protect the cream skilled talent inside your organization? Through proper promotion policies. You give them, you have to balance the demand of the employee and organization for fresh and new talent. This is another tricky situation. If there is an opening for a manager, you always have 2 options. Either you can promote an existing employee or bring in an outside employee who has the same level of experience. There are pros and cons for each one. If you're promoting an existing employees, other employees will be loyal. At the same time, if you look at the cons, they might be a little jealous. How is he working with me on one day and suddenly he's become the manager on the other. And if you talk about bringing in new talent, when you're bringing a manager from outside, he might have new industry experience, he might bring some innovation, some creative ways, even a cost-effective ways to perform the same task. This should also be equally managed by the organization, because if you keep promoting the existing employees, you are not bringing in new talent. There is no, you are not going to know the various new innovative techniques which are being used by other companies. But if you just bring in other people from the outside, people are going to get demotivated. They know that even if they work for 10 or 15 years, they are not going to get the promotion, because always the top management brings people from the outside. So there should be equal balance of the demands of both employees and demands of the organization. And if you look at the development policies, so yes, last slide we spoke about both individual development as well as organizational development. So HR policies will also have an impact on training and development. The kinds, what are the different types of training we are giving to the employees? What is the time frame? Are we going to train them for once a year? Are we going to train them for once in 2 years? That depends, right? It depends upon the market, it depends upon the skill level of existing employees. So that should all be taken into consideration before fixing the training policies. And career planning and career development, this is on an individual level. This is a great way where we actually can show that the management cares about the employee's career as well. Instead of just looking at them like a machine whom we are just bringing in, paying a salary and just asking them to do the work. Instead of that, we can actually give them a good career inside the organization, help them develop new skills, help them develop new techniques in the market. This will actually motivate them to work inside the companies, because they know even though they are working inside the same company for 10 or 15 years, their skill is being developed and they are able to perform more. Their experience is also growing, at the same time their knowledge is also expanding. And self-advancement of employees, this is again focused on an individual level where we are actually giving them an opportunity to improve themselves on both personal and professional life, organization change and development. So when you help the employees gain new skills, when you help the employees to become a better person professionally and personally also, it will in turn affect their performance and also affect the organization's outcome at the higher level, right? I always say it starts with one person. If one person is able to perform well, slowly the whole team performs well, the whole department performs well, and at the end of the day the whole company performs well, and it will also help the whole company in being developed. So that is how individuals' development also results in the organization's development. An appraisal and reward system, when we talk about performance appraisal, it's basically trying to take a check on what the employee has done throughout the year and what are the areas in which they can be improved, which will again have an impact on how much salary we are paying them. So the appraisal process should also be conducted in a very proper way to make sure that none of the employees are being treated or marked, evaluated falsely just because they didn't agree to what the manager said. That's just waste, right? So there are proper and very strict HR policies when we talk about the appraisal systems as well. And finally, we have human relations policies. So this focuses completely on human relations. How are we going to motivate employees? HR policies which are explicitly designed to motivate employees, help them improve their morale and give them an opportunity to find out whether they have leadership skills or not. If they have leadership skills, what are their style? Are they more democratic or are they more authoritative? You give them the opportunity to find out who they are, so that their efforts and their findings can also be implemented in achieving the organization's objective as well. Grievance procedure is very important. Even if you go and join a company tomorrow, you should know what is the grievance procedure inside the organization. If you have a problem, if you have someone who had spoken some rude language to you, what is it that you should do? Are you going to tell your manager, or is there someone specifically designed to solve this grievance problem? You should know what the grievance procedure is, and it's very important for the organizations also to have a proper grievance redressal program. Every employees, if they have a need, if they are facing some problems, it should not be taken lightly. Especially in terms of grievance, how a manager reacts if you go and come to him for a problem, that just denotes everything, right? If you go, for example, if you go and talk to a friend, you tell them the problem is bugging you, how are they going to respond to that? That just shows the entire style of your friendship. The same way it's going to show the style of the management. So the grievance procedure must be given equal importance as well. And we talk about industrial relations. HR policies should also address industrial relation in terms of union recognition, union representative, collective bargaining techniques. What are the various collective bargaining techniques which are being accepted, and dispute settlement. Again, when there is a dispute between one department to another, how are we going to settle the dispute? Who is going to be the person who is going to stand in between and make sure that the problem is solved? All of that should act as a part of HR policies as well, and it comes under the coverage of human relations policies, where we actually ensure that all employees are able to work together harmoniously, and if at all there is a problem, how is the management going to treat it, and what are the different ways in which we are going to help the employees come out of the situation as well. So these are the various areas which HR policies cover. Alright, so in today's class, we started off with HR policies. We spoke about why is there a necessity for companies to have a HR policy. We went deep trying to figure out what are the different examples of HR policies, what are the characteristics of a sound HR policies, and we also spoke about the principles of HR policies, and we finally concluded with coverage. What are the different areas in which every HR policies cover? Thank you, girls.